Got a lot to get to today, but I want to begin today's show not focusing on the loss to the Oilers, not focusing on the win over the Utah Mammoth, which, I got to be honest, Ryan, I kind of wish they stuck with Utah Hockey Club over Mammoth. It's a cool logo. I hate the name. It just looks unnatural. Writing Mammoth looks unnatural.
It was at this point I realized that we can only have, what is it, like moose?
Yeah.
The plural of mammoth is mammoth.
Mm-hmm.
Did not know that, but I'm with you. I would have also gladly accepted Utah Hockey Club for a couple more seasons.
It would have been nice, but we don't want to get into that today. What I want to get to is that over the week, we've seen multiple reports linking the Boston Bruins to making a big move. Or not a big move, but a move nevertheless. Last weekend, Elliot Friedman on his podcast, 32 Thoughts, said that he doesn't know what's going to happen with Mateus Maccelli up in Toronto, who is a winger, used to play with Utah, ironically enough, Arizona before that, and obviously the same franchise, but more known for his production in Arizona than Utah. They were linked to him. They were interested in him, and Elliot said that they were in the past. He doesn't know if they still are, but they were in the past, and that he said that the Bruins are still looking for scoring help. They want a scoring winger. Maccelli, by the way, would be tied with Alex Steeves and Marat Husadinov in points with 9. So he's not having a good year. That's why Toronto wants to move on from him nevertheless. And then yesterday, I was reading in the Ottawa Sun that the Boston Bruins are among the teams linked to a player we're going to see tonight at the Garden, Kiefer Sherwood out of Vancouver. Sherwood's going to have a good market. He's probably going to fetch a first because his market stinks, and teams think they're in it, and there's going to be a bidding war. Other teams linked to Sherwood include the Dallas Stars, the New York Islanders. You've heard, Vegas is always in on these guys, it feels like. Florida is probably always in on these guys, it feels like. And then there's always Tampa. There's always these teams that are willing to spend, right? And the itch to buy and the itch to add is naturally there for the Boston Bruins. However, they shouldn't. I'm going to say it right now, December 20th, they should not buy. As good as they are, as good as they can be, as good as they have been, this is not a team that is a true Stanley Cup contender. And I know the East is a little bit up and down. There's not a team I look at and go, oh, no way you're beating them in a 7-game series. But the Boston Bruins are very lucky to be where they are right now. Not in the standings. Forget about that for a minute. They're lucky to be where they are in terms of their organization. And I say that, Ryan, because you look at where they were a year ago. This was sort of the start of them falling apart, right? They had a good little run under Joe Sacco, and then reality kind of smacked them upside the head. Next thing you know, oh shoot, you're trading off all these pieces and you're rebuilding. Now, that said, you had an awesome, quick little mini rebuild here, where every trade you made, in my opinion, was a good trade. I know people can quibble over the Marchand trade. You should have gotten more. Yeah, I agree. However, I'm okay making that move because we've talked about it on this show, I think, before, but as long as you had Brad Marchand, you were married to the idea of one more for Brad. You couldn't reset the way you needed to reset as an organization. Now, that said, you basically sucked for 2 months, and you got James Higgins, you got a couple of second-round picks, you restocked the pipeline with guys like Will Zellers, who looks good at UND, and you got more picks. But the only way, Ryan, to properly rebuild this franchise is to keep almost all those picks. Now, you want to move one? Sure. The one I most want to move is the Florida one, because I think that's the one that's going to be the lowest first-round draft pick. I don't think Florida is going to be this bad as they've been next year. I think they are proven to be a legitimate Stanley Cup contender, especially when they have Alexander Barkov and Matt Tkachuk, both of whom should be back in their lineup next season when you have that first-round pick. But you got to start making some of these picks. You can't keep trading them for quick help. And if you're in the Sherwood market and that guy's going to fetch a first, I'm good. It's
I
not
would
worth
pass
it.
on it also. I think, and we talked about it a little last week. I know the trade deadline is months away, but I think it's important to kind of reinforce the point that I have felt all along is you're in this predicament because of all the trades that did not work out. Now, if you want to sell me on we might have to give up a little draft capital to make a move like bring in a guy like Alex Steves, for instance, or Murat Kuznetsov, guys who seem to be fitting in fairly well with the Bruins, but we're not getting opportunities to play for, whether it's Minnesota or Toronto or wherever. That I could understand, instead of having to wait as a player develops in Providence or develops in college. If you have somebody that's not going to eat up a chunk of your salary cap early on and can help this team win night in and night out, I would be interested, but I'm not like, we need to do this right now. We're an X away from, no, because I don't think you are an X, a player away from being one of the top teams in hockey. I think you talk about the trades that have worked out. I think the thing that's really worked out for this team is the buy-in that Marco Sturm has got from these players. And I think it might be a little bit tougher if you're going out and shaking things up so early on into his tenure here. I will never turn down talent. I mean, that would be foolish to do so. But I also need to reinforce the point that you are here because of everything that has not worked out so far. You need to eventually pay that bill. You need to make things right, and you need to build through the draft, which they have not. The Bruins have not been able to do that for a number of years now. Again, I understand the merits. If you think you got a guy that, we can get a little more out of him than his former team did, fine, I can understand that. But Kiefer Sherwood, I think is a great example of a guy who will have a pretty healthy market, and I don't think it's worth it to start firing off draft picks so you can get a guy that might give you another 10 to 15 goals a game. I think at some point, if things continue to trend the way that they have been trending, you will 100% be there if you're the Boston Bruins. I just don't think now is the time for that. I don't think this season is the time for that. They're playing well. I'm happy they're playing well. I'm happy they're bouncing back from these little lulls that they get in. But as far as we need to start moving on from pieces so we can reinforce this 2025-2026 team, I'm not ready to do it yet. I'm not there.
No, it's like you're building. It's like you're building a building, right? You're 60 to 70% done, and you want to rent out the building units already. It's like, no, we're not done yet. Still got to put in the bathroom. Still got to put in the electrical. Like, you're not there yet. And that's kind of where they are, right? And I look at it from the standpoint of, yeah, you can acquire a Mateus Maccelli, you can acquire a Kiefer Sherwood, but I would rather find out who you have right now that is a playoff player and who is not. And that's kind of where they are right now, I feel like. By the way, 617-779-0985. Plenty of room for your phone calls in today's show, obviously, as always. But I look at it like, if you're going to go out and acquire Mateus Maccelli, I would rather give those minutes to, as you said, Alex Steves, Murat Kuznetsov, Fraser Minton, who I know is a center, and Maccelli's a winger. And then if injuries happen, I'd rather find out what you have with Matty Poitras, with Fabian Lysell, Dan Zleshmela, some of these guys you have down in Providence that are intriguing. Because I do think that, I've said this before, I think that your team right now, if last year was 2006, 2007, which I think it was, the parallels are there. This year is 2007, 2008. And 2007, 2008 was the year where, you found out you had some young players that could play. And then they got to the playoffs as a wild card. Or now it'd be a wild card. They were the 8 seed back then. But you got to the playoffs. You had a good playoff showing from guys like David Krejci and Milan Lucic and Phil Kessel. And you're like, okay, we got something here. We got some guys here. We don't know if they're all going to be cup winners and cup contenders, but we got some guys here. I would much rather, to your point, Ryan, be that kind of team here and be like, is Kuznetsov a playoff performer? Let's find out. Let's find out if these kids can play. I think that's something that, helped Jake DeBrusk, who we're going to see tonight, by the way. Welcome back, Jake DeBrusk. He's been cold as hell lately, I think, last I looked, in typical DeBrusk fashion. But, he was a guy that he was part of that group that came up in 17, 18. It was 17-18. He comes up with Anders Bjork and Danton Heinen, and you kind of found out, DeBrusk's a playoff guy. He scores goals. He scores big goals, right? And he became part of your core. And guys like Heinen were not. They were traded, and Bjork was traded. There's a discovery part of the process here of building a franchise that I think the Bruins are still in. And as fun as it would be to race out of here and go, all right, we're back in the mix, I don't think you're there yet. Not a bad thing. I just don't think you're there yet. And that's the big thing for the Boston Bruins right now. And Sweeney will always say, to your point, Ryan, about like you never turn down talent. Sweeney will always say, well, I want to give my team a chance. Yeah, that's fine. But you got to think long-term health, right? You can't, well, I want a chance. No, like, rely on your structure. Rely on your system and what's gotten you to this point right now. And that's what the Bruins have to do, in my opinion, because they're just not quite there yet, right? And you have to make some of these picks. And you might hit on some of them, right? You might luck into a Pastrnak, into another McAvoy, to whatever. Or at the very least, you're bringing in players that you can then trade down the line. I don't like trading first-round picks before they're selected. I just don't. And, you know, you got to. They're on a little bit of a heater right now, it feels like, when it comes to, you know, picking and making some moves. And I understand there's a heat. There's that, hey, ride the hot hand. You made some good trades here. I think your good trades have been more about your future than your present. And so I want to keep that in mind here. Again, 617-779-0985. You're going to take a quick break here. We come back. We're going to check in with Ryan Johnston ahead of Morgan Skate over at TD Garden on the Shaw's and Star Market Hockey Show.
Stay tuned for more of the Shaw's and Star Market Hockey Show on the Sport.
if you're home, get the app open, which I'm pro app, but we are live on YouTube, by the way, if you want to watch the show as well. Joining us now on the Expert Hotline, live on his way to the Garden, is Ryan Johnston. Ryan, how are we doing today?
Good, Ty. How are you?
Very well, thank you. I began the show today talking about the trade market, but I do want to talk about the on-ice products that we are currently analyzing and looking at right now with this team. Curious how you look at Thursday's game against Edmonton, because it felt like, it was a loss that, honestly, I wasn't too upset about, and I'm just kind of curious how you felt about it, too.
Yeah, it wasn't... listen, Thursday was one of those games, I think, I felt it going in. It's kind of a measuring stick game. Edmonton is, a finalist here in the last couple of years. They're one of the best teams in the league. Even though they're, not exactly blown everybody away with their record so far this year. But, I mean, the level of talent that they've got is just, is beyond belief. And so you kind of go into that game, excited to see McDavid and Draisaitl in person and see what the Bruins can do against them. And, defensively, 5-on-5, they did pretty well. I think we were, at the end of the day, a little disappointed that the Bruins never really got to their offensive game. They didn't get the forecheck going the way you would have liked against a team that can struggle defensively. They got some chances, and Pickard, after he came in relief, was really good and kept the Oilers in the lead. But the Bruins just didn't really play their best game, or to the level that we have seen them at times earlier in the season. And I think that was kind of the disappointment that comes away with that. It's like, you lose to Edmonton, there's no shame in that. But if you didn't put your best foot forward, and I don't think they necessarily did, then you kind of wonder, okay, well, when we see them again on New Year's Eve, will we get a better sense of what they can really do against a team like that if they're going at 100%?
Yeah, I think my take on it was just, they lose that game 6-1 a year ago, right? And
right.
Really it's a couple mistakes that hurt you. It's the PK breakdown there, which it's easy to have one of those when it's 97 out there, and it's a shorthanded goal by, again, Connor McDavid. And so I just kind of look at it like, I think they limited Connor McDavid as best as one can 5-on-5. It's just he impacts the game in all situations, and so it's really hard to limit those kind of players. And it just I felt like a game where I was kind of like, yeah, you got McDavid. The McDavid show came to town, and that's kind of how I felt about it. So but again, it's better than a year ago, right? And I think the one thing, Ryan, that we can look forward to here, especially with tonight's game, is that the Bruins have been a team that they have found ways to bounce back. They have not let these kind of losses snowball really since ending that losing streak, and so that's something you have to look forward to for tonight's game, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and I would also say, listen, I think it must be difficult to be in the situation where you've got, these two generational talents on the other side, and you have to be so focused on your defensive side of the puck, right? You've got to find a way to slow them down, to limit their opportunities. And 5-on-5, they pretty much did that. But like you said, a mistake here and there, mistaken coverage on the penalty killing unit, letting McDavid get loose on that shorthanded goal. Those are the little things that can come back and bite you. But they have to find a way in a game like that to generate more offensively, and keep Edmonton down in their zone. Great way to play defense is against McDavid is to make him play defense. It can be easier said than done, but I go back to last Sunday's game in Minnesota. When I talked with Marco Sturm on Tuesday before the Utah game, that game in Minnesota where they're down 3-0 after 2, I didn't think, and he didn't think, that was all that lopsided a game through 2 periods. He just said, we just needed a goal, right? If we had gotten a goal, that sometimes can get you going. And I thought that's kind of what, the situation that the Bruins were in the other night is they find a way to get, pop one in there in the second period, it's a whole different game. If they're playing from a lead instead of from behind against Edmonton, it's a totally different game. And it allows them maybe to assert themselves a little bit more. And so those games against some of those top-tier teams from the West here in the last week, it's like you just need a little bit more offense, and that can kind of get the energy level going on your team and get you back where you need to be.
One of the moves that happened this week, or they made this week, they placed Jonathan Aspero on injured reserve, and they also claimed Vladislav Kolyachonok. Is that how you say it? Is that how we get Kolyachonok? That's how it is. Okay, yeah. That I saw that and I went, that's a lot of characters. That's a lot of letters. Let's go with a nickname here if we can. What do you think? Went into that move. Obviously, they are battered on the back end here, but this is a player that they're claiming from Dallas, and I imagine they want to get a good look at him if they are opting to claim him over, say, call up Freddie Brunet or Billy Sweezy or somebody else down from Providence.
Yeah, well, you figure, you're already 10 deep on your defensive depth chart right now, right? With Soderstrom up. You got Callahan and Jokiharju and Aspero and all on IR right now, and so your depth has really, really been tested, and to be honest, it's held up really well. Aspero has shown that he can certainly play at this level as a good, solid stay-at-home defenseman. Soderstrom's given you some decent minutes here of late, and Marco Sturm said the other day he's another guy comes up. He was maybe a little bit nervous in that first game up, but since then, keep it simple, do your job, and he's done that for the most part. So I think kind of where they've been tested depth-wise, when you have a guy who hits the market like Kolyachonok, who he hasn't been able to really stick anywhere. He's had some opportunities at the NHL level. There's some skill there, but for various reasons, it just hasn't worked out. Not a bad idea to bring a guy like that in and see what you've got, and at no or very low cost, see if maybe he's somebody who can factor into your plans long term. Hopefully you're not going to be 10 deep on your depth chart for very long defensively, but you will at some point get tested again when injuries happen, because they always do, and they always seem to hit the defenseman the hardest.
Yeah, this team has been cursed with defensive injuries now for what feels like about 7 or 8 years. What intrigues me is, for people who don't know, he's got some really good underlying metrics, and I know fancy stats can sometimes make our mind melt, but that's one of the things that made him an appealing option on the waiver wire in the first place, was people looked at the numbers, they look under the hood, and they go, there might be something here. I'm just curious because, you are eventually, you hope, going to get healthy, right? And so, I'm curious where he slides in. He has played some right side this year in Dallas, but he's a left shot guy, mainly played the left side. Your left side is kind of loaded, right? So I wonder, is this tweaking Lowry a little bit, maybe trying to get more out of him? He hasn't played poorly, but, he's taken a couple bad penalties these last couple of games. I don't think that penalty, the Edmonton one, was a penalty, to be honest with you. But, that's a guy that they feel like they got to ask for more out of, right? Because I don't think you want to waive Aspero when he comes back. You're not going to waive Jordan Harris when he's healthy, if and when he's healthy. And so it's really interesting, I feel like. That back-end battle, you claim the guy off waivers from Dallas. I think you want to get a good look at him, right? You don't want to put him back on waivers after he doesn't play, but this is an intriguing battle, I feel like, that might be brewing here for Boston in terms of what they got on their back end here.
Yeah, and maybe just, also just gives you another option. Like you said, competition on the back end has been a little sparse here lately because, they just don't have the healthy bodies. It gives you the option of, making sure Aspero or Jokiharju is fully healthy before they get back. You don't have to rush those guys back into the lineup because you're short on bodies, so it gives you an extra body there. It gives you more options, and if it turns out that Mason Lowry is still the best option, or that Jokiharju is still the best option, or that Aspero is, or whatever, then Kolyachonok maybe ends up back on waivers at some point, and If he clears, they can send him down to Providence, and if he doesn't, well, it was an experiment that you tried.
Yeah.
None of these things are permanent fixtures, and from the perspective of Laura, I will say this: it has been significantly better for him since the stretch of healthy scratches. Right? I mean, he came back in, and defensively, I think we see far fewer mistakes from him. Certainly far fewer egregious mistakes from him than we saw in the first month of the season. At the same time, his offensive numbers have dried up. And that may be a byproduct of him just kind of focusing more on defense. If he can put the two things together, that's ideally what you're looking for out of him.
Yeah, I was going to say, we learned how waivers and that whole business is very heartless. And when they claimed Yuri Patera off waivers to get a goalie in training camp a year ago and then waived him like 4 days later, it's like, hey, come on over to Vancouver. All right, bye. See you later. They weren't afraid to make him take some flights all around the country, it felt like. Ryan, before I let you go, what can you tell us about Vancouver and what the Bruins are in for in tonight's game?
Well, the Quinn Hughes trade you would have thought was the white flag, right? That, okay, their season's done. They're going to be selling off parts. And instead, they've come back and won 3 in a row. They spent the week in the New York area, played the Devils, Rangers, and Islanders, and swept all 3. They played last night, so you're getting a team that had to play last night, make the trip up from Long Island. And so, hopefully they're, a little road weary and whatnot, but they've been playing really well. They've gotten some great goaltending lately from Thatcher Demko. I would expect that he doesn't play tonight since he played last night, and that means you'll get Lankinen, who's lost 6 straight starts and hasn't played in a couple of weeks. So, there's something you can maybe take advantage of. We'll have to wait and see today on the status of. All right, so I got to get this right here. Elias Pettersson is the center. Elias Pettersson, same spelling, is the defenseman. Elias, the center, has missed the last 6 games, but is close to coming back, and they said might be ready for tonight. Didn't play last night, but might be ready for tonight. So we'll see if he gets back in. Obviously, that would be really big for the Canucks there. They've gotten some decent prospects and players out of this trade from Quinn Hughes, and kind of how that all fits together with Steve Boyum, the defenseman that they've got, Marco Rossi, right? Ogren. These are all first round picks over the last 4 or 5 years for the Wild, so they've all got some skill and they can all play. And so kind of how that all fits together here will be interesting to watch. And of course, Jake DeBrusk is back tonight at TD Garden, and that's always interesting when he comes here. So should be some fun stuff to keep an eye on tonight.
Awesome. We look forward to hearing the call. 6:30 pregame on the old 98 Hub Sports Hub.
6:30 pregame. Do want to mention tomorrow night we are on Country 102.5 because of the Patriots coverage, and so those of you who are watching the Pats game, want to check in on the Bruins, you can do that over on Country 102.5 and across the network.
And you do wear a cowboy hat when those games are on Country 102.5. We all know, right?
Yeah, Beersy won't let me wear my chaps, but we'll wear the cowboy hat.
Can't wait. Yeehaw, cowboy. Can't wait to see that. Can't wait to see you tonight at the Garden, Ryan. Have a great call at tonight's game.
Thanks, Todd.
Awesome. That was Ryan Johnston joining us live en route to the Garden. Some morning skate updates probably on the way around 10:30.
There's a lot of guys with the last name Pettersson on the Canucks.
Oh yeah,
By a lot I mean 3, but that's still a lot of guys.
They were collecting Petterssons like Bruins collect Lindholms. It's a battle of Sweden.
You have Elias, but then you have the defenseman, as RJ said, Elias N. Pettersson, and then there's a Marcus Pettersson.
Yeah. They paid a pretty penny to get Marcus Pettersson, too. It was like a first-round pick that ended up being like a top 12 pick or something like that. And it was like, oh.
It's going to be a lot of
I'll do that.
Pettersson back to Pettersson.
Yeah.
Pettersson at the point. Pettersson bump past Pettersson.
Well, do you ever...
Take a shot.
Well, when the Bruins acquired Rick Nash, they also had Riley Nash, who is also R. Nash and R. Nash. Not only that, they're R.I. Nash. I was begging for them to have Rick Nash, like full name on the back of the jersey, like JD Martinez. I was like, please make him do Rick Nash. And they were like, no, the numbers are so far apart that we don't have to. I was like, oh no, come on.
No,
Like,
but you get the Nasty Boys. Like,
Yeah.
you could have the beautiful marketing opportunity.
just imagine,
you missed
like,
out
hey,
on.
who's your favorite player? Oh, I got a jersey right here. It just has his whole name on the back. It's like, I mean, that'd be great. I would love that. Anyways, take a quick break here. We come back, we're going to be joined by Bob Beers and your phone calls. I see you guys on the line. We're going to get to you here on the Shaws and Star Market Hockey Show.
The Shaws and Star Market Hockey Show will continue with Ty Anderson, Ryan.
A lot to get to, and joining us now on the Expert Hotline is Bob Beers. Bob, how are we doing this morning?
Morning, Ty. How are you?
Very well, very well. We're looking at Thursday's game and, kind of working backwards from there. It's a loss where I feel like the Bruins did a lot of things well defensively at 5-on-5, but a pair of breakdowns hurt them. What did you see from your vantage point in that game?
Well, I think a team that was really focused on shutting down McDavid and Draisaitl at 5-on-5. And I thought they did a really good job of that. They sacrificed some offense for it. Your top guys weren't on their game. Expectations are high, right? With guys like Pastrnak and Geekie, and expect them to be really good, and Lindholm in the middle. And I don't think that line had a particularly great game. I think, like I said, defensively they were good, 5-on-5. They allow a power play goal, they allow a shorthanded goal, and then, essentially a fourth line goal. I mean, Hudson gets his first point, which congratulations to him, but that was a breakdown defensively for the Bruins in that one. So, I think that they accomplished a lot of what they wanted, but they sacrificed a lot of offense doing it, and I don't think they need to. If you get to your game and you do a little crash and bang, and I think they could have been a little bit more physical against Edmonton, especially against their defensemen. It's not a deep defense core, for the Oilers. So, Edmonton played well, and Edmonton is playing well, and that's something to kind of take into consideration as well when you face teams, that are playing well, and then you face a team that's not playing all that well. Sorry, I got a dog in the background here. So it's you have to take that into consideration sometimes, how that team is playing against you. So.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm a little distracted. My bad.
Don't worry about it. When we were doing remote broadcasts, I would have a cat that would try to knock my microphone off every time. So I believe me, I understand it. No, but I don't know if I'm just looking at it glass half full, because I feel like a year ago they find a way to lose that game 5-1, right? Or 6-1. Yeah. It kind of speaks to where they are right now, where, yeah, it's not perfect, but you know what? It's a team that's been to the Cup final back-to-back years, and you hung with them outside of basically what felt like that shorthanded shorthanded breakaway.
Yeah, I mean, and Sturm even Sturm even said, "I wish we were playing them a few weeks ago," because they were struggling a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
now it's a different team. They found their game. You go on that road trip, you play Winnipeg. Winnipeg isn't playing well right now. And you beat them. And credit to the Bruins, they beat them. You played, who else you play on that road trip? I mean, Minnesota was playing well, and you end up losing that game. So it sometimes the opponent has something to say about the outcome, right? And the Bruins have been good, by and large. You look at the full body of work and you like what you've seen, a lot of it. I mean, there's holes, there's no question, and there's things that they got to fix, but you like a lot of what you see.
You mentioned it, the top line didn't have the most eye-popping game on Thursday. They do score a 5-on-5 goal on Tuesday. On Sunday, we saw Marco go away from them for a little bit there. Clearly, the Bruins have options when it comes to that line and how you deploy those guys and maybe balance it out. Do you foresee them maybe tinkering with that a little bit, or do you want to kind of ride it out and see if these guys can get back to the level that they were at a little while ago?
Well, I mean, I kind of expect them to stay with that line today, but it can always change. That he's shown, Marco Sturm has shown that he's not opposed to making changes in game if things aren't going well. Juggle the lines a little bit if you're not getting the scoring, or if you're not getting the opportunities, right? And I mean, he made a change last game. He went to he put Mitten back in between Jeannot and Kastelik, right? So he'll tweak around, tweak in game or game to game, depending on the situation, depending on the opponent, depending on how guys are playing. So curious to see what the lineup looks like today. You got a Vancouver team coming in that played last night and try to take advantage and try to get back on the winning track, but they've won 3 in a row. So, that's again, that goes to, how teams are playing, how they're trending in a season. And in a long season, you're going to run into a hot team once in a while, and you're going to run into teams that are struggling. And, those are the games you have to take advantage of, especially here at home. I mean, Vancouver has not been good this year, But they have won those 3 games in a row. But I want to see them try to take advantage and get back on the winning track. And you got back-to-back games this weekend.
Yeah, and this is something we've talked about on the show, obviously, before, but this team has been really good at responding. Really, since ending that losing streak, when they have a game like what they had on Thursday, it feels like they come out right away and they're like, okay, we know what we got to do to get back in the win column here, or at least put ourselves in position to be back in the win column. And there's a credit to the coaching staff and the players, it feels like, for getting that message and understanding that, and it's another challenge in that regard tonight.
Just look at that. Just look at their record since that losing streak. You know, they've been good. You know, and some of it, you know, has been like win one, lose one, but they also ran off 6 or 7 in a row where they won. So, you know, their numbers are good since that losing streak. And you know, credit to the team and credit for the buy-in. Credit to the coaching staff, like you said, for keeping them and getting them back on track and not having extended losing streaks. I mean, they had that one, obviously, but you know, you just don't want the prolonged losing streaks because you'll fall out of contention in a hurry, right? With the division and the way that it is. Long way to go. They don't have to look at the standings, but we can. And, you know, you're right there. But, you know, you lose 3, 4, 5 in a row, and all of a sudden, you know, you're on the outside looking in. So it's a competitive division. Some people say it's a weak division. Okay. Either way, you know, you got to win your games, and you got to be playing well. And they have a belief in that locker room right now.
What did you make of their waiver claim earlier this week? I know obviously they're missing 4 defensemen on the back end. It's an intriguing player, though. You know, it's a guy who was, you know, who is 24 years old, has played left and right side, has bounced around a little bit, but, you know, he's mainly played the left side. So I'm kind of curious, you know, what you thought about that waiver claim and what it could mean for maybe some competition brewing on that back end.
Yeah, you're always looking for an upgrade. You know, waiver claims are kind of hit or miss. You know, I mean, he's played for a few different teams already. You know, you maybe you catch him and he's a good fit because of the system. I haven't seen him play, so I can't give you an honest opinion. I mean, I watched him practice the other day. You know, you'd have to get him into some games here to see exactly where he's at, and you know, that's why you have a scouting staff. That's why you have scouts that are watching a lot of games. You know, Steve Spott, the Bruins assistant coach, he was in Dallas. He knows the player, I believe. So, you know, they probably leaned on him a little bit. So I think competition's always a good thing. You know, and if a guy's not playing well, he's going to get sat. And I want that. I definitely want that. I don't want guys to get comfortable. I think that has happened a couple of times this year where a player here and a player there has gotten really comfortable in his role, and all of a sudden, you know, he finds himself in the press box, and then you know, then you got to figure it out. And how do you play when you get back on the ice? And you know, for the most part, guys have responded pretty well. So that's always a good motivator for a player that gets a little complacent in his job.
Yeah, and curious how you feel about this. I feel like we're probably on the same wavelength here, but losing Aspero, it really does feel like it's a sneaky big hurt for them. You know, I know he hasn't played a ton of NHL games, but I feel like he's just been so good in this system, and it's been a guy that Marco has been able to rely on for some dirty minutes, you know, some hard minutes, and to lose that guy, it really does kind of change the shape of their defense, I feel, anyways, through, you know, without him.
I totally agree with you. I think he was playing very well, and in his role, when you can put him, I mean, he was playing the right side because there's a hole over there, right, with McAvoy injured. So you had him and Peak as basically your top 2 right shot, or he's a left shot, but right side defenseman. And he filled in admirably, right? There was games where he was playing 20 minutes. You can count on him on penalty kill. He's not going to play power play, but you can count on him 5-on-5 and PK, and he's going to give you some valuable minutes. And he's hard on guys. He competes hard. He can close. He's a good skater. So yeah, there's a lot to like about his game. You know, he's not flashy. He's not going to blow you away, but he's going to give you some valuable, strong, competitive minutes. And I think that that's something that keeps him in the lineup because, you know, Marco he knows what he's going to get from him.
Awesome. Bob, how do you feel about taking some calls with me here for the next little bit?
Sure.
Awesome.
Sure thing.
Let's kick it off with Jake in the suburbs. Jake, what's going on?
Hey, what's up? You know, I just wanted to see if you had any thoughts around the way that Minnesota and Edmonton kind of defended the Bruins. I know you mentioned that the Bruins were kind of locking in on McDavid and Draisaitl, but it really felt like the Oilers in particular were kind of shutting down any sort of one-timers from both Geekie and Pastrnak, and both of those teams really, really kind of like packed it in front of the net to prevent the seam pass. And, curious what the Bruins need to do to kind of work around that if teams kind of close it off in the future. So.
Awesome, Jake. Jake, thank you for the call as always. Bob, what do you think about their offensive approach in those games and the keying in on guys like Pastrnak and Geekie?
They did, but at the same time, that Edmonton isn't known as a defensive juggernaut. So I just don't think David and Geekie were on top of their game. Even the one setup for Geekie there, the shot in the second period that ended up where Jari got hurt. He missed the net to the far side. That was a good one-timer setup for him. They really didn't threaten. Other than that, there were a couple here and there, but there weren't a lot of big threats from them. And I'll give Edmonton some credit, but I also think that there are just some nights that your top guys are just not going to quite be there. I thought that was one of them. I'd be curious of their opinion, what they thought of their game, and if Edmonton did something special against them. But I think good players have a way to break through and get it done. Connor McDavid scored on a shorthanded breakaway, and he set up a power play goal. So there's ways to kind of get it done even when teams are keying on you. And Geekie and Pastrnak, they're used to that, right? They're going to get keyed on all the time, and it's so. And they find ways to break through more often than not. So I just think it was a bit of an off night for those two.
Yeah, it felt.
And Lindholm as well, by the way. That's a key for them. He didn't. There was a couple passes he didn't handle. I don't think he was at the top of his game either, and that's a big factor. If he's at the top of his game, that helps those two guys create space and create opportunities.
Yeah, I think the thing I noticed beyond the first line was that it felt like the Bruins were getting a lot of point shots, but they weren't getting the traffic or the tips to make those count. It felt like there was quite a few of those.
Denting the crest, exactly. Like they were, the defenseman getting shots through is a big thing, which is good, and that's what you want from them. And putting the pucks in areas where there's a possibility to get tips or rebounds, that's big for them. But I don't think they I don't think they did good enough job of getting that traffic in front of either goaltender for Edmonton in that game and making them work. I mean, how many really difficult saves did the Edmonton goaltenders have to make? Were there any rebound chances in that game? So I don't think they got to their game offensively at all. And, here and there, right? There are chances here and there, but not nearly enough.
Tom and Jefferson. Tom, what's going on?
Hey, what's up, Ty? How you doing?
How's it going?
Hey, the thing I want to talk about is something that I've heard you and some other people mention, was the idea of going out and getting a guy like Rasmus Andersson. And I think that he would, in the short term, be a really good fit. And theoretically, I like the player. He would fit in. But looking at the Bruins timeline, you look at Charlie McAvoy, Elias Lindholm, and Nikita Zadorov. All three of their big three are all signed exactly to the same season. They've got 5 years left. Two of those guys, Charlie McAvoy is 27. He might get another contract after this one, but I can't see them re-signing Lindholm and Zadorov. And if you add another guy that's like in that same exact time frame, I'm worried that you're setting yourself up to have like a bomb go off in your face a little bit later on, where you have no one to be the next generation. So I think really what they need to do is not go after a guy like Anderson, but figure out who are the guys they need to develop in that spot, in that right side spot. And I think that might be trading pieces like win now pieces like Peak, and potentially like a prospect like Lohrei and some other guys, to find someone who is, in like more NHL ready, but still seen as a prospect that could develop into one of those core pieces later on. I think that's how you balance the win now, where the Bruins are hopefully going to, be in contention in the next 2-3 years, and also not screwing themselves for the future. So that's my thoughts. Thanks, Ty.
No worries, Tom. Thank you for the call, as always. Bob, we kicked off the show today talking about, there's been some recent reporting. Elliot Friedman mentioned that the Bruins were interested in Mateus Maccelli. I think that's old reporting. I think that was before they acquired Victor Arvidsson this past summer. And then there was a report out of Ottawa the other day that they're in on Kiefer Sherwood, or they're interested in him. And I think this comes back to what Tom is talking about, where if they made a move, and I'm not convinced they're going to make a buy now move. I think Sweeney always wants to give himself and give his team a chance. It does feel like the back end would be the focus over up front. At least that's just how I look at things. I'm curious what you feel about this team as well.
Both. That's the way I feel. Yeah, they could use an upgrade on. Don't confuse quantity of defensemen for quality of defensemen. You know, they've got a lot of defensemen, but you can upgrade there. You know, I think Andrew Peeke has had a great year for what they've asked him to do. I think he's stepped up and played some really strong minutes for them. I think you're a really strong team if he's your third pair right D. You know, and then, you know, on the left side, you've obviously got, you know, Hampus, Lindholm, and Zadorov as your top two over there. You know, is Aspero your third one over there? He's shown that he can play. I really liked what he's done. You know, or is it Lohrei? I mean, two very different players, or is it somebody else? So, look, they've got a lot of defensemen, but I think that there's always room to improve. You know, is Jordan Harris gonna step back in and play? And we always forget about Yoki Haru. Honestly, I do, because he's kind of his game is a little vanilla. You know, and you know, does he give you quality minutes? So there's room for upgrade there, but there's also room for upgrade up front. You know, you don't turn down somebody that's, you know, you don't look the other way for. So Sherwood was the guy that was mentioned, right? And he's been linked with the Bruins here for a few weeks now. You know, pending unrestricted. I think if you're going to give up assets for this team right now, you want to make sure that you've got a guy that's going to be in the fold for longer than just this season. I don't think you want a rental. You know, he's got you know, a lot of energy. We'll see him firsthand here today. He had a hat trick last night. High energy, you know, can hit and leads their team. Nobody else has more than 9 goals on their team. He has 16. He's not necessarily a goal scorer, though. You know what I mean? Like, he's just a hard-working grinder, and he's gotten his goals. He's gotten rewarded for some of the work that he's put in. So, you know, is that an answer? I don't know. You know, up front, but you're always looking for an upgrade, and if you can get somebody with high energy that can give you some goals, and why not look at it?
Oh, it makes sense. I mean, they always want to give him a chance for sure. Bob, we're going to take a break. Could you stick around for one more, or do you got to head to morning skate?
Sure thing.
Okay, cool.
No.
So we got Bob for one more segment, more of your phone calls here. Let's take a quick break here on the Shaws and Star Market Hockey Show.
Ty Anderson, Ryan Johnston, and Bob Beers. This is
HondaDealers.com. All right. Websites. Who knows how they work? Oh, wait, I work on one for a living. Ty Anderson live from the Town Fair Tire Studios here. It's the Shaw's and Star Market Hockey Show. Bob Beers joining us on the phone line as well, and your phone calls. Let's go to Mark in Medford. Mark, what's going on?
Hey, good morning, guys. Thanks for taking the call. I got two things I want to talk about. The first thing is what the Bruins. I went to the game Thursday night, and I was sitting in the balcony, and you see a lot from up there. And what I noticed was when Draisaitl and McDavid were on the ice together, the Bruins gave up the neutral zone way too easy. By the time they got to the red line, the whole team was at their own blue line already. You can't give guys like Draisaitl and McDavid, with their skating ability, that much room to work with. And I think that it has a lot to do with just the defense playing poorly as well. The second thing I like to see the Bruins do, as I'm with you, Ty, on this, I'd rather see them shore up the back end, because I really thought Charlie McAvoy would be that, goal-scoring defenseman, that offensive defenseman, and it's just not happening. And he's been there this long now. I don't think it's going to happen, guys. I would love to see them get like a Miro Heiskanen, or what would be the perfect Bruin. And I don't know what their contracts are and how old they are, but I'd love to see Zach Werenski on this team.
Thank you, Mark, for the call, as always. A lot of teams like those guys, huh, Bob?
I think there's 31 other teams that would love to see Zach Werenski on their team. We'd love to have him here, but I don't think he's going anywhere.
No, unfortunately not.
I don't think Heiskanen is going anywhere.
I would love to see Cale Makar as a Boston Bruin.
I think to Mark's point, I think he mentioned the goal scoring.
Yeah,
right?
I'd love to have a defenseman like that. Sure.
It is interesting. They've scored 9 goals from their back end this year. I think I want to say at least 2 of them are empty netters, right? So that's been an issue now for a couple of years where they're not getting goal scoring out of their back end. It feels like, and it's. That's where I kind of look at Lowry, and I'm like, you saw it in 2024, right? You saw it that he has the shot that can get through and can beat goaltenders, but we haven't seen it enough, I think, for him to become that threat. But that's something that, if teams are going to key in on Pastrnak and Geekie like we've talked about, you got to find different sources of offense, and I think on the back end, they got to get more out of there.
Well, all right. So, big picture, where are they in scoring overall? I think they were 5th or 6th or 7th. They're coming into that last game. I didn't check after the last game, but overall as a team, they've scored enough.
Right.
You're scoring plenty. Your power play's been a threat every night. They gave up a shorthand goal the other day, and they've given up, I think, 5 now. So that's a bit too many, but they're a threat when they're out there, and it gives you, that's another weapon for you. As far as defensively against Edmonton goes, they play a really disciplined 1-2-2 in the neutral zone. When it's on, it's frustrating for other teams. And they did not give McDavid and Draisaitl a 5-on-5 goal. They defended them pretty well in that game, 5-on-5. So they took care of that part of their game plan. They sacrificed offense in order to do it, and I don't think they needed to. I think that they were just so focused on defense and how they played and how they defended that they didn't kind of get to their game offensively. They can be dangerous too, and they can be dangerous with 4 different lines. We've seen that, right? It's not just the top line that can do it. They're the game breakers, no question, and they're the guys that you expect to do it every night. But other guys can step up and do it as well. And I think they sacrificed a little bit of that offense in that game against Edmonton. So, look, they've shown we talked about it earlier. They've shown the ability to bounce back. It wasn't a bad game by any means, and you're playing against a hot team. Now it's time to bounce back against Vancouver here tonight, and be that team that you dedicated yourself to be. Hard to play against, physical. Get a little mean. I'd love to see a little bit more physicality in their game against teams. I'd like to see them manhandle teams here and there. You know what I mean? The forecheck, the physicality, the discipline approach in terms of positioning and frustrating teams. And I think they have the ability to do that. And generally, they've been a little bit of a slow starter and then gotten better as the game has gone on. and that's been kind of a formula for them. I'd like to have them, just from the start here tonight, dominate this game. That's what I'm looking for, and get back to the game that they're used to playing and the formula for success.
Yeah, and also going back to Mark's call and what you're saying right there is Marco after the game on Thursday said, I think we gave them a little bit too much respect at times, right?
And exactly.
You want to have a little bit more nasty, a little bit more emotion, and he said that. He was a little surprised that they didn't have that same emotional pop or energy for that game.
I think they're a better team when they drag other teams into the fight a little bit. And it's a fine line. You don't want to take stupid penalties, right? But I don't mind some of the pushing and shoving after whistles. I don't mind the face washing after whistles. I don't mind the physicality of guys. Like the bully teams. The Bruins are when you look at them, they can be a physical team, and I don't mind when you drag it into the alley a little bit against teams.
No, I think I love it. I think it's been we've talked about it on the show before. It's been part of their identity, and they've been able to successfully weaponize it, right? Where when they don't have it, they can go to it, and it can change the tenor of a game in the blink of an eye, right? And so you want them to do more of that because it is a good calling card for them. Yeah, like they don't have a McKinnon or a McDavid. They have a Pastrnak, but they don't have so you gotta use what you have, right? And they got physicality and attitude in spades, and you'd really want to see more of that, and especially tonight's game. It feels like.
Jake DeBrusk be in tonight. His father Louis does the TV for Edmonton, and Louis was a bona fide tough guy in the NHL, and he was in the other day, and we were just talking, and we were teammates in Edmonton, and we were talking, and he said, man, you guys are pretty tough, right? he's looking down the kind of the roster. He goes, you guys can kind of go. I'm like, yeah, we're anybody wants to kind of drag it into the alley. I think we're comfortable with that. I think the Bruins are comfortable with that. They've got some guys that can be bullies, and if they want to be. So, he was kind of laughing. He's like, "Oh, I like this team. I really like this team." So, and Louis, he was a tough guy in his own right when he played. So, other teams, when we talk to other announcers or other people from other teams, are like, I like. Billy Guerin the other day, he's like, wow, Kaslik, I like him. He's a good player. He works, and he's physical, and they take notice. Other organizations, other teams take notice.
Yeah, and it's a swagger thing too. Like you can tell, like when they're feeling it, like it feels like even the guys that are not physical, they feel bigger out there, right? Like they
oh sure,
yeah, it's really interesting part of their identity, and it's been true. Cam and Don said it from the jump that they want to be more of that team. That has held true. That part of the bargain, like the players have held up their end of the bargain there. They have been that team, and so you want it to come, show up to the ring tonight because it does make a difference. We've seen it make a difference for this team. Bob, before we let you go here, one final call here from Tom in Boston. Tom, what's going on?
Good morning, guys. Thanks for taking my call. I have a question about the goaltender usage. Swayman, Marco Sturm has said Swayman's playing great and you got to keep him out there, which I sort of understand. But as we learned last year, too many games is too many games, and you start to suffer. If Korpisalo isn't the guy to give him a spell, then, if I had my way, after Tristan Jarry got hurt, Korpisalo would have just traded jerseys with Edmonton, and that would have been the end of it. But, my feeling is, a number one goalie just means the guy who gets all the starts in the playoffs. I don't care how many games he plays in the regular season. Like if, Andrei Vasilevskiy plays 60 games and he has back surgery every 15 months. Connor Hellebuyck gets trashed in the first round because he's exhausted. I don't think the 55, 60-game goalie should exist anymore if you want to win hockey games later in the year. Thanks, guys.
Tom, speaking my language, I think you're paying for peak performance, not games played. And that's something that, it can be an issue. The Olympics kind of throw a wrench in that too, where if Swayman is playing this well, he might be starting for Team USA, so you got to carve that out as well. What do you thought about the goaltending usage, and do they got to lean on Korpisalo a little bit more here as the schedule ramps up even more?
Yeah, well, they will. I don't know, is a 50-30 split a fair number? That clearly says one guy's the number one, and you got 30 for the backup. I don't look at last year at all. I really don't, because the contract situation, missing all of training camp, obviously it didn't work out well. The team itself was just poor. it was a bad product. It was a bad team in front of whoever was playing net last year. So, I think a lot of those numbers are skewed because the goal, Sway, he wasn't as good as he needed to be, and the team in front of him was not good. And, it was awful. So I think I think you look at this year, a team in front of him, a little bit of a different coaching change, obviously a big coaching change, a head coach, but just a whole different kind of culture this year in the way that they expect to win. They don't go out on the ice hoping to win. You know what I mean? Last year was, we hope we can stay competitive. That's the feeling I got because they weren't a good team last year. And now this year there's a whole different attitude, whether it's behind the bench, whether it's in the locker room, and certainly on the ice, the on-ice product. More often than not, the on-ice product is good and competitive. And that's from the goaltender right on out. That's all the areas they wanted to be better in. Goaltending, structured defense, they changed their defensive system, competitive, not an easy out, and have good special teams. And in general, they've sprung a couple leaks here and there, but they've checked all those boxes this year.
Bob, before we let you go here, just final thoughts here. You got 3 more games before the holiday break. What do you want to see to feel really good about this team entering that little bye there that they have for the Christmas freeze?
Yeah, everybody's got the 3 days off, right? But, this is a tough stretch, right? So this is 5 games in 8 days. Unfortunately, they're all at home. So, you're catching Vancouver on a back-to-back here today. They played last night. Then you're going to play tomorrow. Against another team that's playing today. So, no huge advantage there, but you're not traveling. So finish this thing strong, be good at home, be effective at home in the way that you play. And that's what I'm looking for them tonight, tomorrow, Tuesday, heading into the holiday break. You can't afford to cough up points. That's, pay attention to the details, be dialed in for 3 games here before the break, and see where you're at in the Atlantic Division. Take a little breather for a couple of days, enjoy your family, and then we're on the road for 5 games right after that. So, that's going to be a pretty good challenge going on the road out to Western Canada.
Awesome, Bob. Thank you so much for today. Really appreciate you being flexible. I know it's always difficult managing the morning skate and the show on Saturday morning, so I'm super appreciative of you staying for an extra little bit here. And I look forward to seeing you at the Garden tonight and hearing you on the call of tonig's game, or tonight's game, rather.
All good.
Awesome.
Oh, good. I'll see you tonight.
Sounds good. That was Bob Beers on the Expert Hotline. We got some room on the phone lines for you here. 617-779-0985. Anything you want to talk about involving the Boston Bruins, the NHL, whatever. We got you covered here on the Shaws and Star Market Hockey Show.
Stay tuned for more of the Shaws and Star Market Hockey Show on the Sports Hub.
local New England Honda dealers. Test drive the all-new Civic Hybrid or our full line of hybrid and electric vehicles today. Again, that is the electric play of the week. Morgan Geekie continuing to score goals at an incredibly effective clip. You keep waiting for the drop-off to come. It has not come. He's gone a little bit quiet, but he's still second in the NHL in goals. So he's going to smash the career high he had a year ago so long as he's healthy. He has become a player that, I talk to people around the league, and what they say about him is that it's just very impressive the way he's able to still score despite teams knowing who he is now, right? Like, he's not sneaking up on anybody anymore. Like, they know that he can score goals, and he's still scoring them. So credit to him, tip of the cap to him. He's been a find for the Boston Bruins, and you understand what we talked about off the jump of, wanting to add, maybe wanting to find the next Morgan Geekie, but if you're the Bruins, I just think you have to be a little bit patient here. You have to be a little bit, hey, things have gone really well for us.
Can we find another Morgan Geekie? I'd like to find another David Pastrnak at this rate.
I'd like to find another Heiskanen.
The output that Morgan Geekie is doing for this team is probably. I remember back at the beginning of the season, we're like, where are goals kind of come from?
Right.
I was all big on Pavel Zacha. Pavel Zacha's been pretty good for this team. I don't think anybody could have predicted that this was going to be Morgan Geekie. Where are we now? 25, 26 games into the season now. And it's the consistency. And when you have a team that is trying to cement itself in the Eastern Conference, climb back to the top of the Atlantic, having the goals are nice, but having such a consistently stellar player in Morgan Geekie is such an added benefit. I know this coaching staff has to sleep a little bit better knowing, like, all right, we're going to get something out of this guy. We know we can rely on him to put the puck in the net. He has not shown any signs of slowing down.
No, it's true, and he's been a huge reason why they've been so good. We were talking with Bob Beers last segment about their offense and how they've been scoring goals. They have the 7th best offense in the league in terms of goals for per game, 3.2. They have the 4th best power play in the league at over 25%. 5-on-5 scoring-wise, they have scored the 12th most 5-on-5 goals in the NHL with 70. Like, they're getting it done, and Geekie has been a big part of that. And I think what was most impressive and what you liked, and it's great to have Pastrnak back, although I do think he's limited. I think he was moving well last game, but the last few before that, I was like, ooh, he does not look like he has the same kind of giddy-up that he normally does. I think the best thing that you saw during the Pastrnak-less Bruins run was that Geekie was still scoring without David Pastrnak, and that's something that Geekie has talked about. He's talked about how people look at him like he's a Pastrnak merchant, right? And he's like, I don't like that theory about me. He's like, I'm a pretty good player. I can score with whoever I play with. And you saw a little bit of that during the stretcher without David Pastrnak available for them. And so I think that's an important development, and that's why I'm kind of like, I wouldn't be against breaking up that line because I think you can get something out of both guys on no matter who they play with right now.
At the point of where they are right now, I think you can afford, if you're the Bruins, to experiment a little bit and not go, oh crap, we're missing one of our top 6 guys. Who's going to step in? I wouldn't hate seeing what that line would look like if they moved one up or one down. I think what was interesting with Pastrnak, so you're saying, do you think it's more of like a physical thing with him? Because his comments after what was the game before Minnesota? I can't remember, but it was one of his first games back, and he was saying, like, I'm paraphrasing, but like, it's easier when you're winning to kind of just like jump in and throw yourself back into the team. But you also, like, he was very cognizant of not wanting to screw up what was happening with this team while he was absent. So I wonder if his, the fact that he looks so different, not so different, but he does look a little different, is a physical thing. He's trying to, get his wheels turning at the speed that he's used to, or if he is maybe mentally like taking a little bit of a step back because he can see the chemistry that has formed in the time that he ended up missing.
Yeah.
Which would be kind of crazy for one of the elite wingers in hockey to go, I'll defer to you guys and I'll try and get mine when I can, but I am going to back off a little bit and not be so puck dominant.
Well, I think even a 70% Pastrnak is better than most of what you have on your roster, right? But I also like the idea, like to your point of like, that's why I'm kind of into the idea of maybe putting him with Husadinov and Minton again, or just Husadinov, right? Like maybe you move Geeky down with Zacha and Middlestad, and you have Husadinov be the speedy winger for Lindholm and Pastrnak. I just feel like that line, that top line right now, with Pastrnak being less than 100%, just looks a little bit too slow at times, right? Like they're not slow, but like it's kind of, you can tell like they're not moving at the optimal speed that they typically do as a line, and so that's something to watch, I think, entering this weekend. And you know, you got a team on the second leg of a back-to-back tonight. With Vancouver, you're into your building. You can control the matchup a little bit more. So maybe this is a night where you kind of do that if you can. But that's something to watch too. And Ottawa's played them hard. Montreal, divisional game. Like you got some key matchups here. I like this is where you kind of wish you were getting like a Nashville, because you go, yeah, Nashville stinks and we're at home, and you know we can kind of mess around a little bit. Harder to do with divisional games and home ice after a loss, and so that's something to watch.
I mean, they had Minnesota after Minnesota just played. I think they played New Jersey the night before.
They did, yeah.
And you know they were still maybe they were flying a little high after getting
Quinn
Hughes, almost like Jack Hughes. Quinn Hughes into the game, but you know they kind of rushed him early. They being Minnesota, and as far as it's commentary that I've heard on the last two losses with Edmonton, and I worked that game with Bob and RJ, so I was definitely hearing it on the broadcast with the Wild. But the idea, it's really changed since the beginning of the year, that yes, they are losing, and yes, they did give up a lot of goals in that Wild game, but that these losses don't feel the same as they did early on. And I'm wondering, Ty, if you're seeing the same thing, that you know maybe they're actually having, I don't love moral victories, but that's kind of what it feels like, at least the tenor. I don't want to go all Zoomer, but the vibes of these losses feel a lot more positive than they had compared to a couple months ago.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can say that. I don't think that's wrong. Like, I think that now losses feel like learning lessons and they apply them the next time out versus like, oh my God, it's spiraling. What do we do? You know, I think there is a difference there. I do believe that, and so I don't think it's wrong to feel that way or to say that. I think it's true, and I think now that the players have bought in and they see the vision and they've understood the system and the structure they have to play with, like I just think losses are not like, you know, it's like if you have a bad day at work, but your company is still doing well. You know what I mean? Like you're like, oh, well, we'll be all right. We got another day coming. If you have a bad day at work and the stock is like 11 cents, you're like, oh no, what's happening to me next week? You know, like there's a difference.
Yes, I know.
There's a difference in mentality. Anyway, 617-779-0985. Quick break here. Tom, I see you on the line. Room for more phone calls here. 617-779-0985 on the Shaw's and Star Market Hockey Show.
The Shaw's and Star Market Hockey Show will continue with Ty Anderson, Ryan Johnston, and Bob Beers on the Sports.
It's a penalty and a power play goal against in the first period. You match it. But second goal, Sturm didn't love that one. The Quinn Hudson goal, didn't love that one. And then obviously you have the McDavid breakaway, and you could see that one coming. You know, Mark was, I think it was Mark earlier called and said, like, when you're in the balcony, you can see a lot of stuff. You could see that one coming. You saw the acceleration, like, uh-oh. And by the time you realize it, it's already too late. He's unbelievable. He's a freak. Absolute freak of a player, Connor McDavid. Really fun to watch. Shame he's in Edmonton. Wish he was anywhere else, because that team is gross. I don't like watching that team. I do not like watching them play hockey. I think they are a bad hockey team. They are a bad hockey team that gets a half an hour of bailout per night by having Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid. You know, like, and listen, you can say it for a lot of teams in the NHL that take away their best player, they're not a good team. That is a wretched team. Look at their back end. Look at their defense.
I mean, look at what they've been doing with their goaltending the last couple of years.
It's a joke. I hope they never win a Stanley Cup because they've ignored goaltending for so long. You have two generational players, and you're like, let's put one of the little rascals in net. It's like, no, you need a real goalie. You need a real goalie, guys. You got to get a real goalie. And now the one they got is hurt, by the way. Tristan Jarry's hurt. He's on IR.
Oh, they just got him, too.
Yeah.
That's sad.
So, you know, it's a real bummer. I hate that team. I don't like them. Nevertheless, Tom in the truck, thank you for being so patient. Tom, what's on your mind today?
Hey, what's going on, Ty? Thanks for taking my call.
Absolutely.
I heard at the beginning of the show you started off talking about should this team stay the course or possibly make a trade with these picks. I'm not sure if you follow what's going on in Toronto, but it's a pretty bad situation up there right now. Sounds like Berube could be fired soon. Would there be a possibility that we could flip that first-round pick back to Toronto to try to obtain either Nylander or Matthews? Or do you think the Carlo trade has kind of spoiled any future trades with the Bruins?
Well, thank you, Tom, for the call. Yeah, there's been I did see a Leaf writer or fan blog or podcast, I can't remember, but they were like, just stop making trades with Boston. Just stop doing it. They don't work. You know, like you send Phil Kessel to Toronto and you get the 3 picks that end up being Sagan and Hamilton are the 2 headliners there, and it didn't work out here. I know, but you want to cup with Sagan, so it's not that bad. And that now you have the Carlo trade. No, I'm not giving them that pick back because they're in your division, and I think that pick can be a great pick for you. And there is a really dour outlook on Toronto right now. They do not look like a good team. And yeah, they're probably going to fire Berube. I don't know. Yeah, you mentioned it the other day, or what's going on up there. I was watching postgame on Thursday, and they get shut out by the Capitals. And after the game, Berube says, yeah, they had more passion than us. They seem to have more energy and more care. And a reporter asked Berube, why is that? He goes, I don't know. Got to ask the guys in there. And I was like, oh, it's already falling apart. It's already falling apart. Now, they're probably going to make a coaching change, but like at a certain point, there's just something in that room.
It's a weird, I thought that was a weird combination from the get-go.
For sure. Craig
Berube is the kind of coach you need when you need to bang some heads together and go, guys, we're so close. We're so close. And I don't know if the Leafs were ever really ready for a guy like him. I think what you're saying, what our previous caller was saying, something's stunk up there for a couple of years now. And I think bringing in a coach like Berube could just blow it up even more. You know, I think that he's probably fine for a contender. And on paper, you would think, maybe the Leafs should be a contender. But they have bigger issues up there besides just chemistry and getting players to fit and trading with the Bruins or otherwise. I think it might be more than just, we need a new coach. Let's bring in another guy. I just think they're going to keep having the same issues.
Yeah, I think they're going to look at it and say, well, Pete DeBoer is available. And Pete DeBoer has been successful in this league, and he's gone to Cup finals, and you know you're going to get a bump there if you bring him in, right? But I mean, I would love Nylander on the Bruins. I think people kind of sleep on how good he's been in the playoffs. Like, he's been stupidly good for them in the playoffs, and not a lot of guys have. And he's a player that I know is close to Pastrnak. They train together in the offseason. That'd be great. It's not going to happen, but
I also, again, to what our previous caller was saying, if you are Toronto, why would you want to trade with Boston? I think Tomas Kaberle came from Toronto, and they won a cup with him. Obviously, Tuukka Rask and Andrew Raycroft getting swapped. And then Phil Kessel, as you just alluded to, they turned into Dougie Hamilton and Tyler Seguin. I think if I'm just the secretary up there, I'm not forwarding your phone calls from Boston.
No, you're not.
I see a 617 area code. Sorry, you got the wrong number.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. And so that's kind of, I think, where things are with them. Joining us now, Xanadude. What's going on?
Doing all right. I have some actual analysis instead of just screaming, let's go Bruins for once. And it kind of goes back to what you were saying at the start of the show here, that really, like this season, we have been lucky that this team has been worth our time, energy, and money to watch. And that's because of Marco Sturm. And I love that this year they're going to have a playoff run, and he's going to learn from it in a way that Jim Montgomery didn't necessarily have the chance to. I hope they don't sell at the trade deadline. The only reason I see them buying is if you have like a Mark Recchi type, someone who you know is part of your plan for the next few years. Because we know how this is going to end. We know that they're going to get overmatched in either the second or the third round, but Sturm is going to go home over the summer, think about what happened, and these guys going into the 2027 playoffs are going to be an absolute force to be reckoned with because I love everything that Sturm has done with this team. Do you have time for a totally separate, not related to that thing that I'm curious on your commentary on?
Yeah, and I have a question for you before you get off. Are you still on Twitter?
A little bit. I kind of got off of there recently. It turned too toxic. Why?
Oh no, because Getty Images has some great pictures of you. I don't know if you have these or not. I can send these to you if you want them, though.
If you're willing to, I'd love to. I kind of got off of there. It's and it was just it was too much. My boss had some things to say, and I said, you know what, social media I think is not the thing for me. I'll just get it done with a flag and rollerblades the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, if not, I can just email these to you. So just send me your email, and I'll get these to you because there's some great pictures of you from like playoff runs that I don't know if you have them or not, but they're absolutely fantastic, like legit photos that photographers have taken of you on the rollerblades with the shield riding down Causeway.
I would love that. So should I just DM you on Twitter?
Yeah. Just DM me your email address and I'll get them to you. But sorry, what's the other point that you had?
It was just offsides review and just a commentary thing on that. I know it hasn't shown up for us. Mm-hmm. I feel like this rule would simplify it. If the defending team makes contact with the puck in such a way that a whistle would have been blown for a delayed penalty, they've lost their opportunity for offside review. I'm just curious on your point of view on that.
No, I fully agree. Because at a certain point, it's a bailout, and I don't want that. Play defense. Win the puck. That's what that reviews have become now, and I hate it. It's play defense, learn, adjust, adapt, and so that's how I feel about that. Thank you for the call. It's always great to hear from you, and just give me your email. I'll send those over to you for sure.
All right, and so we're on air. Give the commentary on the first thing I said if you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have a good day.
For sure.
Bye bye.
No, this is part. This is a great part of the process here for the Bruins, right? Is that when you did fire Jim Montgomery, I was like, I didn't think it would fix their team, but I was like, not really heartbroken about it. Someone was like, oh, why not? I was like, not a wartime general. You need a wartime general. I need a coach who is going to go to bat for the team. I need a coach that is going to adjust. I need a coach who's not simply happy to be there. Jim Montgomery, great coach for the vibes. Great coach for when things are going well. When things are going wrong, oh my goodness. That man is a deer in the headlights. And look at him in St. Louis right now. When St. Louis came to town, they got their asses beat by the Bruins. After the game, Montgomery had a 55-second postgame where he went, I don't know.
Oh, he just wants to get out.
Yeah. I don't think he's a wartime general. And doesn't mean he's a bad guy. Doesn't mean he's a bad coach. But I think you need guys that can lead you through a battle. I just do.
And whatever Marco Sturm has been preaching to this team has worked. I know he had that big viral,
I tried being nice.
Yeah, and he's kind of maintained publicly, very kind of quiet. He has a very distinct laugh.
Yeah.
Coming off of last weekend, he was really coming out of it was Winnipeg, going into Minnesota. He practiced those guys fairly hard. And it seemed like it was something they were receptive of. And I think those are the kinds of things that are really important for a coach is when can I put my foot down on the accelerator and go, yeah, guys, I know you're tired and you're just thinking about your own bed, but we have a chance to sweep this road trip and we're going to have a hard practice. Or, okay, I've been going too hard. Let's maybe roll it back a little bit. You guys have an optional skate if you want it. I think it was with Bob earlier talking about guys getting benched earlier on in the season and then coming back and responding. I think the Bruins have done one of the tougher parts of this. I'll call it a rebuild because I think they've needed to rebuild for a while now. I think they have nailed one of the tougher parts of this rebuild is establishing culture. And culture is such a cliche thing, but I think it's so true in hockey where you need a group of men to buy in to what the coach is saying because of how demanding this game is. And he has been fairly demanding of his team, and it's not wearing thin. We're not Bruce Cassidy hurt feelings. We're not Jim Montgomery here for the vibes. It's almost like the in-between of knowing when to be tough on them and knowing when to back off. And you can hear it when you listen to the players talk about it. I think even Pastrnak was like, it took a little while for us to kind of figure out what we were doing. And that kind of might explain why they looked as just lost, I think, is how I was describing it earlier in the season. They looked lost. And now they seem to figure out what their roles are and what they need to do to win more games than lose games. I hope it's sustainable. Like, big picture, I hope it's sustainable because through almost 2 full months of the season, whatever Marco Sturm is saying to these guys and how he's working them that we're not privy to, it's working. It's absolutely working. And I thought that was going to be one of the tougher things for this team to do. No, they've actually done it in record time.
Yeah, and I think it's a nice balance between, being a bit of a prick, but also having that softer touch as a former player, right? And understanding what you got to do to get the most out of guys and how not everyone is the same, right? And I think that's something that coaches in the past have kind of struggled with, right? Like, not everyone can be handled the same way, but if they believe in the messaging and they believe in what you're telling them, odds are it's going to get through. And I think it took a little while, but everyone on that team is buying in. I mentioned this, I think, earlier, but I talked to a player who said, yeah, we're kind of boring at times, but we're getting results, so who cares? If we're winning games, I don't care if it's boring. I don't care if it's entertaining. Like, if we win games, we're finding ways to win games, and we're leaning on the identity and the structure and the system that we've been taught and that we've been told how we have to play, and it's working out. And I think that's a big thing for them.
And I think navigating this schedule has been very, very important to the team early on based on, Ty, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. The Bruins have played a lot of games so far, probably more than they would be used to at this time of year based on what the Olympic schedule is looking like. This could have been an absolute nightmare for a first-year head coach to navigate. Maybe they were a little flat in that Minnesota game. Maybe that did have something to do with the practice that they had the day before, but every player I heard from seemed like they were for it. Sturm said it was something that he liked about the Bruins is that they still have these tougher practices, and he kind of knows when he can, let these guys out and run around a little bit and start hitting each other. But based on, the injuries early on, based on sitting guys, based on, we've talked at length about Mason Lohrei and the issues that they've been having on D and how many guys that they've been playing. And I think if this is a team that's looking to contend, I don't know if they're as patient with him as they are. I will be very interested to see what happens with a guy like him. Even some of the younger bottom 6 guys, as far as trying to iron out roles for them. If this is something, if the patience that they are showing with guys like Mason Lohrei will pay off in the long term. Because if it does, oh my God, what a jackpot that is. I'm not as optimistic, but look, I didn't think they were going to be as good as they were early in the season, and it seems like everything that they have been doing so far has worked more than it hasn't worked.
Yeah, no, I mean, well said. The patience was necessary, right? And this is what I think at times they've been forced to be patient. Like with injuries, like they had to bump Marat Hustinov up the lineup. They had to play Alex Steeves. They had to play Fraser Minton in this role. Lohrei, another one, like when you're down Lindholm, you got to play him. Who else do you have? Right? And Jordan Harris goes down. You bring up Aspero, and Aspero's got to learn on the fly too. And so I think this natural sort of I think for years, the natural default was to veteran players, was to bring up this guy. He's a classic tweener. He'll be okay. No, they've had to actually play some guys that don't have experience or a resume, and it's paid off right now. Begins the chance for a bounce back tonight at the Garden. It's a home back-to-back, which is weird. Those are weird. That's weird. It's ruining my weekend, but that's okay. It's never ruining my weekend, but I got to do Christmas shopping at some point. Maybe I'll get it at the Pro Shop. Everyone, you getting Bruins jersey for Christmas, deal with it. This has been the Shaw's and Star Market Hockey Show. I am Ty Anderson. I will see you guys next week. Have a good one.
Hey North Andover, Monkey Sports is your go-to spot for hockey, lacrosse, baseball, and more.